Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for watching another episode of this hot rod project here with my 29 Ford Sedan, as I'm trying to turn this hot rod into a family car actually, and I'll show you how I'm doing that. If you see previous episodes, how I figured out how my front seats mount and my rear seat mounts. We left off with my gas tank and my battery being mounted in the back. But what I didn't do on camera last time, because I just didn't want to do it, was figure out how to tie down the back of my seat and then figure out exactly how much room I had to put a bulkhead in between my back seat and my gas tank. Honestly, I just didn't want to do it. I was kind of dreading it because I didn't have a good vision for it. But like I always say, you can't build a hot rod by sitting on the couch, so I figured I better dive in and figure out how we're going to tackle this project. Okay, so here's part of my dilemma. I've got this seat bracket that the seat came with. Again, it's like a minivan seat, and the rear part of it has these quick release deals. This just mounts on the bottom of the back of the seat, but the problem is it's too narrow. It doesn't fit in the back of the car in between my floorboards that I have set. I mean, it doesn't fit on the outside of them. I would love for it to clip down in there and latch in and call it good, but it doesn't. And I sat here and I studied it, and I thought, you know, I could come in and I could split it, stretch it out, modify it where then it'll mount in there, but even then it still sits too high because there's just about 1 inch thickness that I can't get rid of. And the way I have the seat set up, I want it to lay down as flat as it can and low as it can. I don't want to raise it up at all. One of the objectives of building this car is to have room for the family. So I have to think about that, designing all this stuff. Maximum room, which means no 1 inch space under the seat. Alright, so here's what I'm working with. Let me come around to this side of the car, I'll show you the mounts, how the front goes in. I want the seat to be removable, at least semi-removable, and doing so you can see how I mounted the front. The original hooks, and I just tied those in real good to the underfloor structure, so that's where the front of it mounts on. My issue is, how do I tie down the back? So I think I've got a solution. I think it's going to be pretty easy. The way to go about it is it has these 2 holes already in the seat, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a piece of angle iron like this. That's going to mount directly to the floor. Once I get my holes drilled and get it figured out, I'll probably just weld it to my floor, and then my seat will flop down in there. And I tested it. I have enough room with my nimble fingers to get in there and put these 2 bolts in. Alright, so once I figured out how to get the seat somewhat removable, there's a few other details I have to sort out. The last piece of this puzzle we got to sort out is this bulkhead that's going to fit in between my seat and the gas tank. I have about a ½ inch of space to work with there, and it's okay, the seat can lean against it, that's fine, but I've just got to be pretty accurate where that ties in. And then the other piece I have to figure out is where I'm going to mount these guys here. And I think I've got a solution on that, where I'm going to mount my seat belts. I've got some swap meet seat belts that came with it. As you can see, one of them's black, one of them's tan. That's perfect. That way nobody gets mixed up on whose belongs to who. And the other issue I got is I have 2 seat belts and 3 kids. So I did the math and figured out I got to buy another seat belt for the back, but that's no problem. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here to this cross piece, which is some thick wall 1 inch tube or 3/4 inch tube, and rectangular tube. And it's tied into the car very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to drill that, and then what I'll do is weld a nut on the back of it, and then use some good grade 8 hardware to bolt 1, 2, 3, 4 places, and my seat belts will just go in like that, and they can stay in the car if I pull the seat out, because I want to road trip this thing at some point, and if I do it with just 1 passenger, it'd be great to pull this seat all the way out of the back and have room for all my spare parts and snacks and all that good stuff. So here, so this is my piece of angle iron that came off of the it came off the floor. I got it marked where I'm gonna have to do a little bit of trimming for my 2 body mount bolts that are there. And then this part is going to go in here, and it's just going to go bolt 1, 2, just like that. So I could get in here with my tape measure and measure out exact center and match it up and go distance and mark it there, but I'm not so good on making that perfect every time. But I am pretty good at using a Sharpie. So that's where it needs to be. That's where my holes are. About right there. Other hole's going to be about right there. So then I'll take this, go over to the bench, find how far down I need to go, punch my holes and bolt it on there. And here, tech tip for anybody who has kids: when you get a good Sharpie for the shop, put your name on it, because these things have a tendency to disappear. Alright, well, I got that part done. You get the gist kind of how this goes in with my piece of angle iron, with my 2 bolts that'll tie right into the back of my seat. So I'm going to call that good for now. I might have a little more welding to do on it, but that's good. So now the next thing I got to move on to is trying to figure out how this bulkhead's going to fit. Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a couple of days since I've been tackling projects on the Model A, but I've got some headway done. I've actually been at it out here for a little bit. When I left you last time, I was wrapping up my seat mount. And then today I just came out here and tacked in what'll be my bulkhead for the back of the car. That'll basically frame out what's going to be blocked off for the gas tank battery area and separate that from the cab. So you can kind of see how I did this. Check it out. Real simple. I just framed this thing in. I almost got rid of this wood, and then I thought, nah, I'm not taking all the wood out, so why bother? I don't need to take that out, I'll leave it. But this front piece here will be covered with, probably with actually another piece of wood, probably like a board. If I can find one, a nice piece of aluminum would go in there, but it'll be removable. Whatever it is will bolt in here, and so a guy can take that out. And you can see with my straight edge here, I did just maximum amount of room possible so it doesn't hit my gas tank. And the whole idea again is that my seat will sit up against the back here. This board will help seal off like a bulkhead, and then I'll have a removable lid here on this package tray area in the back. Alright, so like I was saying, I got my bulkhead all finally finished up and framed up in there. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and pull this whole structure out, come in and finish weld where all those tacks are there. Alright, so this is the framework that we built to mount the gas tank in that goes in the back of the car. And one of the things I hadn't fully sorted out before moving on in that project was where exactly or how exactly my battery is going to mount. I've got the battery box, which I want to run and I want to use, and it's going to sit about like that, but I just needed some way of tying it down on there solid. So I finally decided I'm just going to go with this this crappy looking piece of sheet metal that I pulled out of an old section of the floor from the car after I got it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and trim myself out a piece of that sheet metal that fits right in there. Try to bang it out pretty flat and then weld it on there, and then I'll just have this pretty solid stuff. This stuff's solid. It's like 14 gauge, so that'll be plenty to bolt that battery down onto. Yeah, so that's how I'm going to handle that. This is my battery tray now. You could tell there wasn't a square side on that piece of sheet metal that I chose, so I had to kind of trim that sucker up. Plugged a couple holes in it that were pretty nasty, but anyway, it'll work. I got her welded in there, ground down. This piece is ready to go into the back of the car, and it won't do it again until I'm putting this thing together to drive. So pretty happy to have that project done. Now moving on to the next piece. I'm almost ready to pull the body off of this chassis and get busy with it. I have one more real big project I need to tackle before I get to that, and that's with the front of the car here. I'll show you here in a second. So I have this frame shell. This is off of like a 30-31 Model A, and the car is a 29, but I just like the way these shells look a little bit better, the kind of a more rectangular shape. But anyway, this thing's got to get fitted to the front of this car somehow. I've got to figure out exactly where this thing's going to sit, and I got to figure out how it's going to sit there. So in order to do that, I got to put my radiator in. I've got to mock this thing up and figure out my exact height, and I think the best way to do that, why I want to still do it with the body on the car, is to just mock it up, run some tape between the body and the grill, and then sit back and look at it and kind of get an idea how the line looks to get my height on my grill shell correct. So I'm going to knock that out next, but I'm going to call this one complete. I'm going to wrap up this video with just this kind of the back end of the car. So that's it. Check it out. Do me a favor, share this if you don't mind, subscribe to the channel. I'll put a little link right up here to do it. And hey, let's build this community together and enjoy the hot rods. All right, thanks. Till next time.